The best part of every Pokemon game in only 10 minutes. Red and Blue. Honestly, for the first try, I think they got a ton of things right, which is really hard to do. Go watch my first video, there might actually be nothing good about it. Kanto has excellent dungeons that we still remember to this day. Mount Moon, Rock Tunnel, Viridian Forest, that one really annoying series of fences. Seriously, who does this? The integration of the link cable and trading to make it a more interactive journey with your friends was genius, especially for back in the day before we all started doom scrolling and developing social phobias. And honestly, I think Kanto as a region is super underrated for its progression. I actually kinda love how the midpoint of the game feels like a series of puzzles and how Team Rocket, the Sylph Scope, the Sleeping Snorlax, and Pokemon Tower are all interconnected in this cool way that you have to figure out step by step. Also, Mew. If this guy didn't exist to spread playground rumors back in the day, there's a high chance Pokemon would have never caught on in Japan, and you wouldn't be watching this video right now. Yellow. This game introduced the friendship mechanic and the idea of interacting with your Pokemon outside of battle. Having a latte with your Aegislash in Lumio City wouldn't be possible if we didn't start here with simple and effective interactions with Pikachu. As a tie-in to the anime, it really made you feel like Ash Ketchum and reinforced how all the pieces of the franchise, from the games to the show to the cards and more, all fit together in a really cohesive way. Gold and Silver. An absolute technical marvel for its time, and it came so much farther than it was supposed to. You see this map right here? This was Beta Kanto. It was basically the size of your front yard. Not a country front yard either, a New York City front yard. How they went from this to 16 badges, nearly all the landmarks, and still one of the greatest finales ever where you fight yourself from the previous game is beyond me. The addition of time-based events also encourages you to revisit every corner of Johto and Kanto during every day of the week and during every time of day. They really did an awesome job making the experience feel more immersive. Crystal. Huge improvements to the Pokemon distribution throughout the Johto region, which is frequently one of Gold and Silver's biggest criticisms. Like, why is Sneasel not in the Ice Path? Why were Stones only post-game exclusive? Team building sucked in Gold and Silver, but here it only mildly sucks. Also, frequently overshadowed by Ruby and Sapphire in this department, but this technically did introduce the tradition of the legendary Pokemon finale during the story. Ho-Oh and Lugia were completely optional catches in Gold and Silver, but here Suicune gets a proper build-up to its capture, which is something they stuck with in the long term. Also, you can be a girl now, inclusion is nice. Ruby and Sapphire, one of the biggest technical leaps in the franchise. Not just in terms of graphics and mechanics, but also additional features to flesh out the game. Each Pokemon now has abilities to make them even more unique, double battles were introduced to open up a whole new avenue of strategic battling, and without them, we wouldn't have Wolf Glick. Everyone say thank you, Ruby and Sapphire. Secret bases, Pokeblock blending, and Pokemon contests were all introduced here to make the game feel like it was about more than just catching and battling. Oh, and maybe I'm biased here, but I still think Hoenn has the best route and area design in the entire series. Minus most of the ocean. I should probably clarify that. I literally just made a video talking about the Regis and how I thought they were the best set up trio in the entire series. It's a region that really rewards exploration more than any other, I think. Fire Red and Leaf Green. Arguably the only version of Kanto that feels exactly like it should. It smooths out the jankiness of the original Gen 1 games, and it has all the mechanics that Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee left out, oddly making this feel like the definitive version of Kanto, despite being 22 years old. Also fixed the post-game and the absurd level gap that plagued Gen 1's original endgame, making the whole experience feel more complete. Unless you're a masochist who just enjoys grinding for a week. Emerald. Still to this day, one of my favorite titles that I think holds up the best from the first 3 gens. This game introduced the first truly cinematic climax to the plot with Rayquaza, added a ton of post-game content that wasn't in the original Ruby and Sapphire, most notably including the Battle Frontier, but probably my favorite part is the revisions to trainers' teams in this game. The trainer rematch system from the Pokénav was further expanded upon, making grinding way easier and making average NPCs feel like actual trainers who are progressing and getting better alongside you. In the past, youngster Dave was just a guy I beat once and forgot about. Now he's an actual op. And gym leaders got a huge boost in this game. I still think Emerald has some of the most challenging gym battles in the series. It's a massive improvement from Ruby and Sapphire. Diamond and Pearl. Truly the beginning of Pokemon's modern era. Physical Special Split redefined the entire game, giving tons of buffs to pre-existing types in Pokemon, and making the game overall more easy to understand instead of having to memorize an invisible system. Wi-Fi made global trading and battling a thing still a staple in today's games, and we got evolutions to old Pokemon, a lot of them who definitely should have always been there, like Weavile and Mismagius. Come on, Gen 2, get it together! Platinum. Probably the gold standard, or platinum standard, for Pokemon's enhanced versions. Made so many improvements to Diamond and Pearl that it almost makes the originals feel unplayable. Larger regional decks, Battle Frontier 2.0, a slightly faster battle system, and some tweaks along the way to drastically improve the pacing of the story. Oh, and the Distortion World 2, probably the coolest area in Pokemon history. Did you think I was going to mention that? Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Probably the gold standard of remakes, if not the heart gold standard. Actually, no, I'm not gonna do that again. Absolutely packed to the brim with content, these are arguably the best Pokemon games for your money. Well, unless you're buying them in 2026, then that's a bit more of a hefty price tag. But still, these games probably have as much content packed into them as the last 3 Switch titles put together. Plus, there's some real improvements to the story here, along with some more spotlight on Team Rocket and Silver, which really flesh them out. Hey there, if you're hyped for the 30th anniversary of Pokemon, then be sure to like and hype this video, it'd really help me out. Black and White, definitely still a somewhat controversial take, but the soft reboot idea with exclusively new Pokemon was a huge breath of fresh air. Playing these games for the first time and not knowing what literally anything was actually kinda awesome. Just like time-based events in Johto, seasons added a layer of depth to almost every area, encouraging you to re-explore the region 4 times over. And definitely the best climax of a Pokemon game without any doubt in my mind. Black 2 and White 2. Instead of taking the easy way out and reselling us a slightly better game for $40, they actually went out of their way to make full-blown sequels, which on its own is one of the best parts of these games. If this was a Switch game, it would have been $120 with $50 post-game DLC, but here, it's the whole package. It's really cool revisiting Unova after the 2-year time skip, seeing all the new areas and familiar faces in new places. And honestly, of all the games, it feels like this one has some of the least noticeable flaws, a fantastic send-off to the Nintendo DS era. X and Y. Huge jump forward in graphics made in a really satisfying art style that feels like it has barely aged since 2013. Honestly, it might even look better than a lot of the games that came after it. Kalos still somehow has the most expansive regional decks with 450 Pokemon, leading to a ton of variety in the battles. Not every fisherman just has a Magikarp and a Tentacool, now they have a Magikarp, a Tentacool, and some other mildly cool third thing. And trainer customization is still somehow better than most of what came after it. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Game Freak's most experimental remakes by a long shot, to the point where they feel like they have an entirely different identity from the original Hoenn games. Mega Evolution was really seamlessly integrated here, the lore was expanded upon greatly, and it works just as well as an X and Y follow-up as it does a revisit of Hoenn. The little fun features like secret bases and contests have also been upgraded to feel more vital to the whole experience, which is nice. Sun and Moon maybe doesn't have the best climax like Black and White, but I would still say it's the best overall story and characters. It was also cool seeing them shake up the gym formula a little bit. I mean, yeah, trials are kinda basically the same thing, but Totem Pokemon were cool, and I liked how the trials tied into the regional gimmick by awarding you Z Crystals. They're like gym badges that you can actually use. Also, Professor Kukui. Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. By far the most challenging games in the series, and there's a ton of new side material that really fleshes out the Alolan adventure that I think a lot of people sadly overlooked. Rainbow Rocket is also definitely kind of a fanfiction fever dream, but I honestly loved every minute of it. I think it's the best post-game episode by far. Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Probably the most visually appealing Pokemon games, at least in my opinion. It beautifully realizes Kanto in a 3D style, the Pokemon models look super sharp and vibrant, which is something they struggled with on the 3DS. And it also introduced visual wild Pokemon, moving away from random encounters, which erases a lot of the tedium of finding a specific Pokemon. And you can play this game with the child you're babysitting, so that's fun. Sword and Shield, honestly probably the best beginning of a Pokemon game. It really speedruns the tutorial phase where most other modern games really drag, and having access to the wild area within the first hour of the game gives you a ton of wild Pokemon variety early on, making it one of the most unique games to Nuzlocke. Crown Tundra is also still my personal favorite DLC in the series. It really feels like classic Pokemon with all the cool puzzles to solve. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. The underground is cool, I guess. Legends Arceus. The Pokemon can kill you now! Wild Pokemon no longer feel like purely an annoyance. There are ones that you genuinely have to fear, and it keeps you on your toes while exploring, which is something I think we desperately needed in a game set in the past. The wild Pokemon all have really distinct personalities too, and respond differently to what you do, which makes the experience even more immersive. Crafting is also a fun little mechanic, and I like how it rewards you for catching Pokemon and filling out your decks. This game also has the single best fight in the entire series with Volo and Giratina. Okay, maybe the best two fights, I should say. It honestly still gives me goosebumps just thinking about how well executed it was. Scarlet and Violet. Open world Pokemon was finally realized on a regional scale, and it's really awesome choosing your own path once the game finally takes the training wheels off. Like Sword and Shield, you have access to a ton of Pokemon early on, and even more if you have the Kitakami DLC, making it another pretty fun Nuzlocke game. Legend ZA. The new battle system is pretty hot, honestly. I actually just love how fast-paced everything feels. It almost makes me not want to go to turn-based. Almost. We definitely still need it for VGC. The return of Mega Evolution was not only hype, but also excellently handled in my opinion. New Megas are revealed in really cool ways, usually through climactic boss fights or rank-up matches. And unlike the Gen 6 games, it's not just you and two other NPCs using Megas. It feels so much better integrated here than it ever has. Hey, John Pokemon! Yes, I did post my video shilling all of the games in the 30th anniversary, just like you told me to. But, of course I was going to shill them. I mean, there aren't any bad parts of Pokemon games. Or are there?